Okay, I'm gonna go ahead and start sharing my screen. Can everybody see that okay?
Yeah, we can see it.
Awesome. So welcome everybody to, oh, we've got another person entering the room. Welcome everybody to Invest in Her and Illuminate Businesses workshop about how to apply for internships and jobs. So I'll first give a little bit of a spiel about what Invest in Her does. So we're a 501c3 nonprofit that focuses on closing the gender wage gap and gender equality as a whole by providing financial literacy education, life skills like the workshop you're going to get today, and public speaking workshops. We're really excited to be partnering with Illuminate Business to bring this to you. So I'll throw it over to Ria so she can tell you a little bit more about the organization.
Yeah, hi everyone. So I'm Ria. I'm the founder of Illuminate Business, and I'm just going to talk a little bit about what we are all about. So basically, at Illuminate Business, we seek to help high school students explore business careers and also develop a relevant skill set. So with that, we kind of include like professional events where our professional speakers who come in and they just talk about their job in the business field and what it took to get there. We also have things like we connect students with college students for mentorship events. They talk a little bit about their business program, and there's a lot of like Q&As that we have going on there. We also do workshops, and we are also a core part of our organization is our courses, which includes like mostly career simulations. So if you're interested in like something like restaurant management, then you could test out if like that specific career or field through one of our courses. And we're starting to offer more like specific skill related courses. And then we also are looking to go into more competitions. So we're on Instagram at Illuminate Business, and it would be great if you all just follow or stay tuned for all our future content and our future podcast and blog.
Yeah, Illuminate Business is pretty awesome. So they helped us coordinate this event, and we're really happy to be working with them. But just to talk a little bit more about who we are, my name is Caitlin. I help to co-found Invest in Her. I'm from Scottsdale, Arizona. This fall, I'll be attending Duke on a full ride merit scholarship called the Robertson Scholarship. So if you guys have any questions about that, feel free to reach out to me afterwards. I'm also interested in public policy and economics, and of course, gender equality, which helped spark this nonprofit.
Hi guys, I'm Harshia. I am from Maryland and I am a rising senior in high school. And I'm also interested in public policy, finance, of course, gender equality within business specifically. I also have my own organization and also business ethics. So just to talk about internships and jobs, first off, we're going to talk about a bit of the difference between them because there is quite a difference. So first, internships, this is an entry-level position. It's meant to be temporary as a learning opportunity. There are some internships that are paid and there's some that are unpaid. Often a lot of high schoolers receive unpaid internships, but there is a way to find paid internships. And these can be in many different fields such as law, business. There are all kinds of internships. As for jobs, this is a position that can be permanent or seasonal. Some can be summer jobs, like a lot of high schoolers do, and there's some permanent jobs, and that comes with a salary, of course. You can have an hourly rate, yearly rate, and then there are also a lot of benefits that comes with jobs. It really depends on what kind of job you get and what kind of benefits come with it, but there are some really great benefits in some particular jobs.
Yep, and those benefits would typically include something like health insurance, which you're not going to get in an internship because you're not technically an employee of the company, and therefore they don't have as much of an obligation to take care of you as they would if you had a permanent or even a seasonal job. So why would you get an internship or job? Well, the first obvious reason is to just get extra money to save, spend, and to add to that, also to invest. you're interested in business, you're also probably interested in finance and stocks, and learning about investment is also a great reason to get a job, because then you actually have money for which you can explore what you want to do with it. But another reason why you'd want to get a job or an internship is to get a leg up in the job market. So a statistic and a poll found that 89% of employers say that high school work experience helps in the hiring process. And for me personally, this has been really true. I've had quite a few internships over the course of high school, and every time I've gone into an interview for a new one, they've always said that the skills that I learned from the last one would be really valuable on the job. And that's part of the reason that I would get it. So for everybody who's looking to get into whatever field, whether that's business, whether that's something in STEM, or you want to do more public policy or government, just trying to get a job, whether that is something that is at a restaurant over the summer or something in the field that you're interested in, will help you in the job market, because it shows your dedication, it shows your skill, it shows that you have the ability to commit to something for a long period of time and do good work.
So we're all going to share our dream job. We can just go around and share our dream job. And of course, Caitlin put a meme on the right of the screen. But I can go first. My dream job has always been a lawyer, specifically a corporate lawyer. And that's something that I've always wanted to do. But of course, that your first job is probably not going to be your dream job. I'm going to have to go through a lot of school to get that dream job. But that is definitely my dream job. So if anyone else wants to go with their dream job.
I can go ahead and share next. I've always joked that my dream job is being a US Senator. I don't know if that's actually true, but it's just a way to crystallize political ambitions. So you also don't have to know exactly what your dream job is or really even have one. But if you don't, then you can just say maybe a career field that you're interested in.
Oh,
Oh, you can go ahead.
sorry. I was gonna say that my dream job would probably be something like management consultant. I really like that consulting kind of field. So, and I'm interested in business, so that's just kind of what my future goals kind of are.
Gayarthi? Is that how you say your name correctly?
You were close, but yeah, I'd say like something in the field of medicine, maybe biomedical engineering.
Ooh, that's awesome. Seema, I see you have your camera on.
Yes, hello. I would say that my dream job is like life coach or like consulting people, like giving them advices through social media and giving courses. But at the same time, I dream to do something else, like in business, doing like creating my own business.
That's awesome. I remember that from last time.
I can go next. Hi everyone. I don't know why my name isn't showing. It's actually Faith. So, hey everyone. I think I'm really interested in like being like a biomedical engineer, and if not that, I'm really into tech. So probably I would be in the field of like some type of like computer science thing. I have my own like courses I'm taking on the side already right now. Or like I said, I would be like in the science field. So basically I'm a very STEM oriented person. So that's kind of like what I'm looking to do.
Super admirable. We here at Invest in Her are not as much of STEM people, so we really appreciate the people who are. And then Abdullah.
Hi.
Do you want to share your dream job?
Yeah, so it's investment banking, and I'm currently like looking for other fields in finance, such as venture capitalism and hedge funds, private equity. So yeah, that's what I want to do.
Awesome. Well, thank you everybody for sharing with us. We really like to get to know you guys, and I feel like I have a better glimpse of the great things that you aspire to. All right, so now we're going to get on to how to look for jobs.
So first off, the first step you should definitely think about first is what your career goals are. And this is going to basically kickstart how you're going to start looking for opportunities. And that leads you to your next step, which is actually looking for those opportunities. You can look locally for help needed signs or just around. You can ask around your local restaurants or anyone you know locally. I would also recommend asking your family members. You never know what kind of connections you might have. And then also some online job sites. On the right, we have some recommended. My personal favorite is Indeed. I found one of my internships on there. Same with LinkedIn. It's really great. You can make a bunch of connections on there as well and ask some of your connections. And then there's a lot of other ones on there like Glassdoor, Scouted, Snag a Job, but they're really all great. You can find internships and jobs on there.
For sure. And when we say family connections, it also doesn't have to be your family. You can also ask friends, mentors, people you've met professionally, those people who are actually at the internship or the job you're working now, because they might have a suggestion as to how you might progress your career. So just really take advantage of all the opportunities around you, and don't be afraid to network or just ask for help, because in my experience, people are more than willing to provide advice. They're willing to provide introductory emails or even advocate for you on behalf of their company and try and bring you into the fold to get an internship or a job. So just really take advantage of every opportunity you have to ask somebody for more opportunities, because the worst answer you're ever going to get is just no. And this is an example of a sign that you've probably seen around your town or your city, like a Kohl's or a supermarket or maybe a Target going, "We're hiring," and asking you to apply. If you don't already have a job, the job economy is really hot right now just because there aren't a lot of people looking for jobs and there are a lot of open positions. So if you're still in summer break, like Harsha and I are, then this would be a good time for you to start looking either for a job or an internship, just because right now is a really good time to seek one.
And just to continue off the steps, the next step we recommend is building a schedule. And we recommend Google Calendar or Notion. Notion is really great because you can also make a to-do list and other types of tabs on there. And you're going to compile like a list of jobs you're applying to, which ones you need to send emails to. And this is really good to do because if you apply to a bunch of jobs, you need to keep track of which ones email you back for interviews. And it's always great to respond really quickly so you can get that interview scheduled right away. And just to keep track of which jobs you applied to, which ones you didn't, because it's likely that if you apply to one, like it's likely that you're applying to a lot of jobs because you might not get a position that fast if you just apply to one or two jobs. So a lot of high schoolers go ahead and apply to many, many jobs and see which ones they get a response from.
Yep, and you can also include other portions of the preparation for getting a job, like when you want to do interview prep during the day or when you're going to review your resume before the interview. So you can build in those little extra steps that are pretty easy to forget, but can also be really vital towards actually scoring a job or an internship. So to continue these steps, the fourth one would be to create a resume. Now with your resume, you're going to try and paint a holistic picture of any of your work experience or volunteer experience that makes you a good candidate for this specific job, in addition to your education and any other qualifications. So first, for a high schooler, it makes sense to list any extracurricular activities you do, including any leadership positions you might hold. Second, any prior job experience. It's okay if you don't have any because most high schoolers won't, but if you do, it's always a good way to stand out. Third, your education. So you want to have the name of the school, your location, and your graduation date. So for me, that would be Duke University, Durham, North Carolina, 2026. And then really importantly, you want to make sure you include any keywords for specific industries. It's a relatively common phenomenon that managers are trying to interview and look at a lot of resumes. So they only spend on average 6 seconds looking at yours, which means you need to stand out. So you want to put into a Google search engine or look at places that are common for providing job advice. So maybe a magazine like Barron's, and look at any keywords for specific industries that a manager might want to see. So if you really want to go into law, for instance, you might want to have activities or language that hints at having legal experience or legal aspirations. So that way managers realize that you have a tailored resume that is taking this job seriously, and you can make yourself stand out compared to the other applicants because they're only going to be briefly skimming what you've done. And then sometimes at the bottom of the resume or in a couple of pages attached afterwards, you can also include something called references. So references would be the contact information of people who are willing to provide a character reference for you. So this can be your teacher, it can be a coach, a minister, somebody who's had a large impact on your life, like maybe a dance instructor or a speech and debate coach, or somebody at your former job. So it's really important to keep good relationships with the people who have previously employed you, because even when you've left that job or that internship, you can always go back to them and ask them, hey, would you be willing to tell this employer how great of a worker I was, how diligent I always was, how I always came on time so that I would be able to get this next position. And those references can be the make or break for a lot of interviews, just like in comparison, like the college application process, your letters of recommendation can be a make or break. So this is the professional version of a letter of recommendation that you might have for a college or a summer camp.
And just as Caitlin was talking about, here's more of like a visual example of what a resume would look like. A lot of people put their name at the top and then their contact information somewhere on there, such as your phone number, your email, maybe your LinkedIn even. And then there's a professional summary at the top. You don't really have to put that, but you can if you're applying to something really specific and you have a lot of qualification or experience prior to that. And then below, summary of qualifications, skills. These skills can really range from anything. As you can see on this specific resume, one of the skills here was leadership. And that's a skill that a lot of you probably already have. So you can definitely include that on there. Some other examples would be social media management or even coding for the STEM people out there, but really anything can work for skills. And then the biggest portion of your resume is going to be your work history, of course, any experience you've had with volunteering, school clubs, prior internships, work experience, really anything to do with that. And one thing that we really like to emphasize is that anything that you're currently doing, like something that you're still working for, or like the most present thing you have, should always be at the top of your work history. And then something that you did a really long time ago should always be at the bottom. You always want to keep the most recent stuff at the top. And then your education, really, that's going to be super short. You're just going to put your school and when you're going to graduate. Some people put their GPA and their SAT score. You don't have to put that, but that's always an option.
And when you're trying to describe what your work history looks like, you don't want to just list the title that you held and what the club was, for instance. You also want to list what you did. And a lot of jobs and volunteering organizations would like you to try and quantify what you did. So instead of just saying, I taught students math and reading, you would say, I taught 40 students math or reading over the course of a year. So really being able to contextualize how much work you did in terms of numbers, even if you aren't a STEM person, a lot of employers really like to be able to do side-by-side comparisons of each candidate, and really having impressive numbers and having numbers to compare in the first place is a really nice way to make your resume seem really professional, because a lot of people won't realize that they should be describing their activities in that way. And you can also include any other hobbies that you might have. So for instance, you might play a musical instrument. Now, that's not technically work experience, but playing a musical instrument does give you a lot of skills like patience and diligence and perseverance and a lot of practice. So those are skills that can still be really applicable in a job or an internship. And as long as you frame what you did as a musician in a way that applies to whatever job or internship you're applying for, then it can be really valuable to also include. A couple of other important things to consider when you're putting together an application for a job. First is having a professional email and a signature. So a lot of us, since we're Gen Z, probably created our emails when we were pretty young. And I've seen some really interesting ones, like ones that have words like tall griffin in them, which doesn't necessarily seem super professional. So if you're applying for a internship at a research lab for biomedical engineering, for instance, you don't want your first impression to be that, oh, this girl uses an email from third grade that says tall griffin or something like that. So you want to make sure that you have a professional email address that has maybe your first name and your last name, or your first initial last name. You can have some numbers in there, but as long as it's somewhat clean and you wouldn't be embarrassed to send an email to somebody in a place of authority, then I think it passes the professionalism check. You also want to make sure that you have a professional signature at the bottom. So just a simple sincerely Caitlin Kai always works, but you don't want something that has a joke like PS something something at the bottom just to be funny. While that is probably just fine in a non-professional context, when you're sending your first email to a potential employer, you don't want that to pop up. Another important thing to remember is to keep a portfolio of your previous work. So what a portfolio of previous work essentially is a collection of all of the tasks that you completed or materials that you created, or just references from a previous job. So for me, when I was working my last internship on my last day, I collected all of the materials, infographics, and spreadsheets I had created, loaded it into a doc, and then downloaded that onto my computer. So if a future employer ever asked me during interview, hey, you talked about this for that previous internship and it seemed really interesting, can you tell me a little bit more about it? I would be able to physically pull it up and show them, which just shows a level of preparedness. And then finally, you want to consider having a cover letter. So a cover letter can sound a little confusing, but it is quite literal. It's just a letter of interest that goes before your resume. And Harsha will explain a little bit more about it.
So here we have also a visual example of a cover letter. And really what a cover letter is, it's really short and concise. It has this standout opening and some relevant skills and qualifications that you might have. And it has a sort of call to action, because you want the person reading your cover letter to be interested in reading your resume and learning more about you. So of course, at the top, you're going to dedicate your cover letter to the job you're applying for, or specifically the person that is probably going to read your resume or interview you. And then you're going to have a short 1 to 2 paragraph dedication. It's just going to talk about your passions, some qualifications. As you can see, this person says they've had teaching experience, and it's really tailored to the position they're applying for, because they're applying to a school. So you have to talk about stuff that you've done that is relevant to that position. And of course, at the bottom, like I said, there's sort of a call to action at the bottom. They said that they can be contacted. So it's saying that they want to be contacted and they want to speak with them. And that's going to be on their front of the resume. So the reader is going to read this letter, and then they're going to be encouraged to also read their resume. And like I said, a cover letter is super short and concise. So make sure it's not too lengthy. It's just meant to be 1 page long.
Yep. And next, we're going to cover how to get the job, just like our main character did in Ratatouille. So the joke here is that sometimes jobs seems like they have qualifications that are impossible to meet. So we're looking for someone age 22 to 26 with 30 years of experience. Not every job will be like this, but this is sometimes an example of what you may find that you encounter, but that doesn't mean you shouldn't apply for the job, and that doesn't mean you won't be able to do it. So just take these kinds of qualifications that might be listed under the job posting with a grain of salt, because you might be able to do it anyways. And if you have a killer resume and knock the interview out of the park, they may hire you, even if you don't have the full 30 years of experience as a 22-year-old.
So once again, we're going to go ahead with some steps. So once you hear back from your potential employer, you have to schedule an interview. This is likely going to be in the mornings, and you're going to want to prep for that interview, of course. Make sure you know what the employers are looking for specifically to your job. So maybe go on the company's website, look at some of their core values or anything that really entails to the position you're applying for. So make sure you basically know about the job you're applying for, because it looks like you're interested in what you're applying for. And if the interviewer has any questions specific to what you're applying for, then you know how to answer that. And then do some practice questions. Some of the really common ones that you should be prepared for are like, what makes you different from other applicants? Why did you apply to this company specifically? Something that is really common that a lot of people never know how to answer is, tell me about yourself. So make sure you're also really prepared for that one. And have questions of your own prepared for the interviewer. Even if you don't actually want to really ask that, it's always good to ask questions at the end of your interview just to show that you're interested in the job, because if you don't have any questions, it might seem like you're disengaged or not that interested. And of course, dress nice, sleep well, and have a good breakfast so you're fully prepared.
Yep. So now we're going to do a little bit of a demonstration between Harsha and I about the 5 most common interview questions. So those would be, tell me about yourself, just like Harsha said. Why should we hire you? What are your strengths and weaknesses? Why do you want to work for this company? And where do you see yourself in 5 years? So I'm going to pretend that I'm the interviewer for Intel, for instance. Not that Harsha has to apply for Intel anytime in the future. And so we're in an interview and I'm going to ask her, so Harsha, what do you think are your strengths and your weaknesses?
Sure, Caitlin. So I believe some of my strengths are definitely that I've always loved innovation and technology, and I've really put that forward with exploring my entrepreneurial ambitions through technology. And I think that really expresses the creative side of me. I'm super creative. That's always been a strength of mine. I always look for some creative solution to any problems I have. Especially in tech, I've made my own websites and applications that really no one has ever thought of before. So I definitely think that's one of my strengths. And I think one of my weaknesses is I'm always trying to overschedule myself. I always try to cram everything I want to do within one day. But I've genuinely started working on this throughout a couple of years. I've gotten a planner and I always try to fit everything in time blocks so I know that I can attend everything, put my best self forward with every activity that I attend. So I'm definitely working on that weakness. I just think that it shows that I'm ambitious about everything I do and I just want to get it done as soon as possible. But I know that with my time management skills, I'm definitely working on that.
That was an awesome answer. Does anybody want to tell me about something that they thought Harsha did really well? Seema saying recommend doing SWOT, strength, weakness, opportunities, and triggers. Yeah, that's actually a really interesting economic concept that you could definitely apply to answering this question.
I found it on the Google, and I just want to share with you. So, like, good exercise to know what you, if you are like lost, to know what you want and what you are good at and something like this. And it will help you if you will like apply for job or internship.
Yeah, for sure. A really good thing to do before you start any of your job interviews, just so you can have an answer down pat for that question. Somebody direct messaged me. She used her weakness to demonstrate a strength. Yes, that was the really awesome part of the answer. The key in a job interview is not to make yourself seem perfect, but to make yourself seem really adaptable. And Harsha gave a weakness like overscheduling, but said that it showed a positive trait like ambition. And also, she was learning to get the hang of it with time management. So, those were two really good qualities that she essentially flipped the question around to just talk about even more strength. So she didn't try and make yourself seem like totally unfallible, but she did make herself seem like somebody who could handle the places where they might fall short.
Okay, so now I'm going to interview Caitlin. I will be interviewing her for Google, and she's going to be applying for any position in Google, not really anything specific. But so, Caitlin, tell me why we should hire you for our position at Google.
I think you should hire me for this position about marketing because I have a lot of skills in communication. I did speech debate all throughout high school, even ranking number 3 in the country. And I think the skills that I had there have enabled me to think really on the spot and be able to communicate really complex ideas simply. So instead of taking a long time to put together press releases, it becomes really easy for me to field potential questions from journalists just on the spot, enabling me to save time and be really efficient for the company like Google.
Great. So what was awesome about Caitlin's response was that she immediately jumped into her experiences and how that puts out her best traits like communication, which is super relevant to the marketing position she's applying for. So something that she did a great job was mentioning her also achievements in those specific qualifications that she has. So she mentioned speech and debate and how she was 3rd in the country. So that really shows that she's not only having this experience, but she's good at that experience that she has.
Yeah, and that reminded me, on your resume, you definitely also want to list the honors that you have, whether you list it in a separate section right above your work experiences, or you can list those awards in the description of each activity. It's a really great way to stand out compared to a lot of your peers, because if you're in high school, a lot of kids will do things like HOSA, FBLA, speech and debate, DECA. But if you really stand out in a particular section of any of those activities, or maybe you got a special induction into an honor society like NHS, then you definitely want to list those, because a lot of people can join clubs, but not everybody will be really good at them. So if you can highlight what you are really good at, that's a way to stand out in the application process.
And just some more information on what we've said is the process is different if you're applying for an educational based job or a service based job. So academically related, it's really different because they will want to know more about your qualifications within academics. So stuff related to your GPA, your grades, stuff like that. As for service, like past experience is also really relevant within service based jobs. So always remember to pinpoint what type of experience you have and how you can use that experience to your advantage when you're applying for certain jobs or internships. And don't stress out about the interview, because if you stress out, it'll just make you more nervous while you're speaking and that'll worsen your performance. So just be prepared for strange questions, really, or anything. Just try to be calm and remember that you're just trying to showcase who you are as a person, and there's nothing you can change about that. And it's okay to get rejected. Rejection is redirection, as many of us say. And it's super common, especially for high schoolers looking to apply to jobs. A lot of us apply to many, many positions before we actually land our ideal position or job. So even the best applicants are even overqualified and they get denied. So just apply to a good amount of jobs, not too many, and remember that it's okay if the first one doesn't work out.
Yeah, and on that third point, you can stay persistent. I chased my current internship for over 6 months now. I wasn't harassing a job recruiter or anything like that, but I was going through multiple connections. So I didn't just try emailing the person who might be running the program. I also reached out to people in my personal life who might know somebody inside the office that I'm now working in and asked them if there was any way that I could get a sit down interview just to really talk to them about the program. So you can be persistent if you think that an opportunity is really worth pursuing. And just because you don't get an answer doesn't mean it's a rejection. They might have just missed your email, or they might have just not happened to check it that day, or they opened it and forgot to respond. So that doesn't necessarily mean that you should give up on the opportunity. You can follow up maybe 2 times, I think is a good amount. And once you've gotten there, you're likely to have made some kind of contact, or then you can realize maybe this opportunity is not for me. There are plenty of fish in the sea. Let me try another one. All right, and now we're gonna go on to how to do better on the job. So the meme on the side says my face every time my boss opens his mouth. We talked about references earlier, so it's important to keep a good relationship with your boss. But I think all of us will probably run into 1 or 2 supervisors in either high school or in our post-college life where we just don't jive with them. But that doesn't mean you have to do badly on the job either. You can still do great and not have a perfect relationship with everybody in the office.
So in the workplace, it's really important to be polite, be professional, responsible, flexible, and positive. It's good to not only do this because you have to develop a good relationship with your boss, but also with your coworkers. If you have a good relationship with your coworkers, then it just makes the environment so much light, and you can also ask your coworkers for help in case you need a shift covered, or just really in case of anything. It's good to develop that relationship because you are also making connections with them. You never know how the future is going to go. You never know what you're going to need from your coworkers or your boss. So make sure you keep that in mind. And just having an overall good work environment is just going to make you a lot happier at your job, and it's not going to make it seem miserable.
And some tips for just how to handle your job. Yep, CMA communication is the basic for building good relations. A lot of my coworkers, even from like last summer when I had an internship, have reached out to me today and we still talk. So being able to build those lasting relationships where I know I can come back to those coworkers and ask them for advice, since a lot of them are older than me, or to just talk to them about how things are going has been really valuable. And so learning to just network on a daily basis and just be kind and polite and speak to everybody is just a great skill to develop. But as for 10 tips that you should do on the job, first, don't work too much overtime. When you're doing a lot of overtime, it sets the expectation that you will always be available to do 20 hours a week when really you should only be doing 15. And if you're always doing 20, then when you try and scale back to 15, sometimes you can get pushback from the people in your workplace. So just really know your boundaries. If you want to do 15, stick to 15. If you want to do 20, that's also great. Stick to 20. Just don't constantly do overtime just for the sake of maybe impressing your boss, because that can set an unrealistic expectation for yourself and cause you to burn out if you're constantly just doing so much work. The second one, we've already hit the nail on the head, but develop good relationships with your bosses and your coworkers. Third, know the people that you're supposed to go to if you have questions or problems, like manager, HR. This is a good way for you to both protect yourself in the workplace should anything go wrong, and also make sure that you have a good line of communication. So if you're ever confused about what you're supposed to be doing, or you finished your work really fast, then you know who to go to get more. And then you can develop a good relationship with them and show that you're really proactive. But if you just don't know who you're supposed to go to, that makes it really difficult for you to even be able to get more work or get clarification on the work that you're supposed to do. Fourth, remember any tax paperwork that you need to fill out. So once you enter the scary world of adulting, you have to do taxes. When you're doing your first job, you're likely to not pay a huge amount of taxes just because you won't be earning that much. You'll be part-time, but there is paperwork you still have to fill out, namely the W-4. So that's just some personal information and how much you want to withhold from your taxes, and you'll of course get your pay stub or direct deposit. So just make sure that you're staying on top of all of that paperwork and on top of due dates and deadlines, because you can just get fined if you're not submitting things on time. And due dates and deadlines for your work inside of the office, not just external paperwork, is super important too. And then finally, like we said before, even if you want to leave your job, stay on good terms with your former employer, because they can be really valuable in providing a good reference for you in the future.
And as we conclude this meeting, we wanted to just let you know that you should definitely follow Invest in Her on our socials. We are at invest.in.her on Instagram, and then we also have LinkedIn. It's just Invest in Her, and below is our website and our email if you ever want to reach out or just take a look at our mission. And it was really great having you all here. We really appreciated you guys taking the time out of your day to come and attend the session. We hope it was helpful and that you learned a lot from us. And of course, stay in touch, and we hope you enjoyed.
Yeah, and before we go, it would be great if we could just take a screenshot really quickly. So I don't know if you guys are comfortable with turning on your cameras. Oh, somebody's already off. So I guess maybe we won't end up taking the screenshot today, but super great to meet you guys and to see you again, Seema, and hopefully this was helpful.